Hello, and welcome back to Storyphile, where we discuss all things stories, including books, movies, TV shows, and games. So today I'm going to be doing my picks for what to read and watch during the Halloween season if you don't like horror. Lots of books and movies that show up on Halloween recommendation lists are often horror or thriller, and I don't like horror, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So today I'm going to give you my recommendations for books and movies to get you in the Halloween spirit without terrifying you. So first up, we're going to start with happy Halloween stories. So things that are just kind of feel good, but still kind of put you in the Halloween mood. So my first recommendation for this is going to be Clue. This is kind of an older movie. It's a ridiculous movie. It's based on the board game Clue, where there is a murder and there's a bunch of suspects who all have a motive to do it. It's a ridiculously funny movie, and I probably have the entire thing memorized. It's really campy, so I definitely recommend if you want just a lighthearted murder mystery, Clue is the way to go. Another recommendation I have as far as lighthearted Halloween movies is Kiki's Delivery Service by Studio Ghibli. This movie follows a young witch named Kiki and her pet cat, and I don't know, it's got a witch and a black cat, but it's not, otherwise it's not Halloween at all. It is one of the most wholesome movies I've ever seen, and it is my number 3 on my list of favorite Studio Ghibli movies. So I definitely recommend giving Kiki a try if you want just something fun and whimsical and very, very wholesome. My last recommendation in my happy category for Halloween is going to be Coco, which was a Pixar movie a few years ago. Coco is very much focused on Day of the Dead and Mexican culture surrounding Day of the Dead, and it is beautiful. It is visually stunning. It has great characters, a great soundtrack, a great message. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies. It's absolutely fantastic. So if you want to get kind of more into the religious and cultural side of Halloween as opposed to just costumes, Coco would be a great choice. My next category is kind of my mid, not just happy, wholesome all the time, but it's also very much not scary. It's definitely still kid friendly. So I have 2 recommendations in this category, both by my favorite author, Neil Gaiman. The first one is a short story anthology, and that is MS for Magic. I think this is one of his more underrated short story anthologies, but most of them they're all kid friendly, and most of them are kind of I don't know, they're horror without being horror. It's hard to explain, but you can just flip through and find your favorite short stories. I'll leave my recommendations in the comments, in the description below, my short story recommendations out of this one. But it's got some good kind of Halloween vibes without being overly scary. My other Neil Gaiman recommendation in this category is The Graveyard Book, which won the Newbery and the Carnegie Medal in the same year. So it is very highly acclaimed by critics, one of my favorite Gaimans, the first one I ever actually read. So this one follows the story of a young boy who grows up in a graveyard. It's basically the same story as The Jungle Book, but instead of being raised by jungle animals, the boy is raised by ghosts and dead people. So that sounds really unnerving, but it's not. It's a great story with a lot of really cool characters. I think the premise is super interesting. And this one that I just held up, this is actually the graphic novel version, which is really, really cool as well. One of the main characters is a vampire, so if that doesn't scream Halloween at you, I don't know what does. The next category I have, I'm calling Halloween vibes. It has nothing to do with Halloween. There's nothing overtly Halloween-ish at all, like vampires or ghosts or anything, but they just kind of seem like things you would watch around Halloween. So my first recommendation here is going to be Macbeth by Shakespeare, one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. I've taught it a bunch of times. Macbeth, if you don't know the story of Macbeth, he receives these prophecies from witches. I guess that part's Halloween. He receives these prophecies from witches about him being destined to become the king of Scotland somehow, and all of the prophecies that the witches give throughout the play gradually come true. As with all of Shakespeare's plays, I definitely recommend watching this one if possible, or at least listening to like a full cast production of it. I'll leave a couple recommendations for my favorite Macbeth adaptations in the description down below. But if you don't have access to that, definitely reading it. It's one of the shorter Shakespeare plays, and No Fear is a great way to go about that if the language is a little intimidating, as it is for many people. Next on the list of my Halloween vibes is V for Vendetta. I know this one is also a graphic novel, but I haven't read it, so I'm just going off of the movie. This one, I mean, we've got like Guy Fawkes Masque right here on the cover. So, you know, remember the 5th of November. It's already like right kind of time of year, just there in the catchphrase. But I don't want to give away this too much without spoiling, but it's got a lot of dark kind of stuff, but it's not horror. It's kind of more of like a political commentary. So if that is more your thing, V for Vendetta might be a good fit for you. And then my final recommendation in the Halloween vibes list is going to be the Batman movie from 1989 starring Michael Keaton. This is considered one of the best Batman adaptations, and just this one in particular being directed by Tim Burton and starring Michael Keaton as Batman and Jack Nicholson as a Joker. It just like feels very like Halloweenish to me. Like The Dark Knight does not give me Halloween vibes, but Batman 1989 does. I can't even like really say why. It just feels like something that fits the season really, really well. So if you're into superhero movies, then I definitely recommend checking out Batman from 1989. The next category is actually my favorite category for Halloween, and this is the like Gothic / thriller section. So this is like kind of closer to like what you would think of as horror, but they're still not horror, because again, I don't read horror or watch horror. So these are more like psychological problems. You'll just see as I start giving them, or they are from like their Gothic literature. So Gothic meaning like kind of abandoned locations with really dramatized like settings and atmosphere and overly dramatic emotions. So these all fit that category. So the first one, we have Frankenstein from the mother of science fiction herself, Mary Shelley. I love Frankenstein. I taught it every year I was teaching English. And I don't really have a good movie recommendation for this because none of them have really done it right, in my opinion. So just read the book. If the beginning gets you down, start at chapter 5. That's where Victor Frankenstein first creates the creature, Frankenstein's monster. So most people are familiar with generally Frankenstein already, but I mean, Victor Frankenstein literally like builds a human out of dead body parts. Like if that doesn't scream Halloween at you, I don't know what does. So definitely a great choice for Halloween. My next recommendation on this list is going to be And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I just finished rereading this for probably the 3rd or 4th time. It's one of my favorite Agatha Christie novels, and it's one of the few that does not star one of her 2 main detectives. It's kind of like all the characters are acting as a detective. So in this story, we have 10 characters who all end up on an island together. They're all like invited there by some mysterious person, and one by one they start ending up dead. They start being murdered. None of the murders are like described in detail. There's not any like jump scares or like pop out and get you kind of things, but it very much has this air of like suspense and who is going to die next. And I don't know, it was really terrifying to me, but again, not in like a something's gonna like pop out of the shadows way. It's just like, who's gonna be next? Where could this person be hiding? Who is causing this kind of way? So again, another great choice for this time of year. My next recommendation in this kind of Gothic thriller category is Sherlock Holmes' story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. So this is probably the most famous Sherlock Holmes like longer story as opposed to like the ones that are a couple pages long. So this one basically there's a guy who dies and they're not really sure why. So of course, you know, Sherlock Holmes comes to investigate, and there are also rumors of this giant dog that has like been prowling around the moor around the area that the people live in. So kind of like And Then There Were None, there's no like, from what I remember, there's no like jump out and like scare you moments, but it still is just like very creepy feeling. Again, Gothic, so put in this category. So just kind of like a creepy, like unsettling kind of story. There is a show adaptation of this in the TV series Sherlock called The Hounds of Baskervilles. That episode I think is like the most terrifying of all of the episodes. So if you like that, then it might be cool to check that out as well after you've read the book. It's really, really short, but I think the show adaptation, the way they portrayed that, was like way scarier than the book. So if that's not your thing, just be forewarned. My last one in this particular category is going to be Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Yes, it is my name. That's not why I love the book. I see lots of people recommend this one kind of around Halloween for good reason. This is another thriller. It's not horror. It's all psychological thriller. It's kind of another mystery. Rebecca, the name of the book, she was married to this guy named Maxim de Winter. Maxim marries this new girl, and I don't think she doesn't have a name. She's just Mrs. de Winter. Maxim marries this new girl, except Rebecca is like still kind of there at the house. I mean, not really, because she's dead, but it seems like she is. There's like something sketchy going on. So it is also a mystery, but there's no like ghosts or scary animals or anything. It's all just like in your head. My last category, these are like the true, like if you really like that like scary, disturbing Halloween stuff, but still don't want to quite get to horror, these are my two recommendations for you. Number one, another Neil Gaiman, and that is Coraline. This is technically a kid's book. But I found this book very disturbing. This is the graphic novel version. I didn't even remember all the plot points, and just flipping through the graphic novel version made me disturbed again. So, contrary to the name of the Graveyard Book, Coraline is way more disturbing than the Graveyard Book. So if you are looking to like read one to your kids and they might be scared and have nightmares, Graveyard Book would be a good choice. If you're looking one just for you and you can put up with scary people with black button eyes and being trapped in houses and possibly dead children, then this one would be a better choice for you. It's still a great story. It's just a lot more disturbing than probably anything else on this list. And then my last choice is just any story by Edgar Allan Poe. I'm putting this at the end because the stories written by Edgar Allan Poe can range from can fall into any of these categories. Some of them are pretty tame and kind of fun. Some of them are about murder, and some of them are about torturing animals. So kind of depends on what kind of thing you're looking for. So I feel like Poe, there's something written by Poe that like everybody likes. There's something for you. He was such a prolific author, kind of like Neil Gaiman. Like there's just something that you'll probably like. I personally do not like lots of gore and torture and things, so The Black Cat is not something that I enjoy, but I love The Fall of the House of Usher, The Cask of Amontillado, The Pit and the Pendulum, that are a lot more just like suspenseful and again kind of more like psychological thriller kind of things as opposed to just like ripping bodies. So any kind of Edgar Allan Poe collection, you'll find like all the greatest hits. And you can kind of look at the table of contents and see what looks interesting to you. So there you go. That's my recommendations for this Halloween season, ranging from kind of the most like campy, fun, not scary at all the way through very unsettling, but still not quite like reaching into the realm of horror. So I hope you found this helpful. Go ahead and leave your recommendations for anything you think I might enjoy in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye.